Hi folks, thanks for joining me for this week's river tutorial. What you see in the vise is a big meaty dry fly getting ready for the start of the trout season. Hopefully we'll all be back fishing properly by then. So without further ado, let's get into it. In the vise then is a Hanak H130 barbless hook. This one's at size 10, it's on a fine wire. What I like about this hook for dry fly is it's got a nice upturned curved point, and it's got a deep throat as well, which I really like. When fish come up and take the fly, very often they're well hooked on these 130s, so that's why I'm using that. I'm using the Fish On Ultimate Tan Silk. This one's in black. And as always with the silks, I'm going to add a little bit of super glue to the shank of the hook, just to make sure that silk doesn't rotate on me. I'll get a bed of silk all the way down to just by the point before coming with my snips and removing my waste. Now for the tail of this fly, I'm going to be using this cock hackle for the hackling at the front and for the tail. Now take a feather from the back here at the top of the cape. One of the big feathers is best. I've already picked one out, and as you can see it's got some lovely long fibres that I'm going to use for the tail. And what I want is between 6 and 7 fibres. Just put that to the side, and I'm going to tie that in. Now lengthwise I want just by the length of the hook shank. So I'll hold that into place, and before I stop I'll just check that. Yep, it's looking good. And I just want to get rid of the bulk of the ends of these, and then I can bring that up. Now I'm going to add my rib at this point. I'm using the Fish On gold wire, and again I have got a little bit off here that I've been using, so I'll just catch that in. I'm going to catch this in the entire length of the body on my side. So I've just picked up the edge there, and I'm going to come all the way down to the base. Now next I'm going to come all the way up to the front, and as I said I'm going to tie in another cock hackle, and again I've already pre-selected a feather. Now I want the shiny side on yours. Now this is really important, this part, so I'm going to really hammer the point home if you like. I'm going to leave a good 1/8 of an inch at the front of the hook here. It's really important, and you'll see why later on in the video, but make sure you leave plenty of space at the front, because if you don't you'll be in a world of hurt. So just catch that in like so. Hopefully it doesn't wrap round like mine did. Then I'm going to come back to approximately 1 millimetre. So if I, again, sorry to labour the point, but if I bend this back you'll see I've still got 1/8 of an inch in the front here, and that's really important for this fly. Next I'm going to use some CDC. Now I've obviously tied a few of these before doing the video, and I think I've made a mistake. I'm using some CDC feathers that I was given by a friend that shoots. So there's a couple of bonuses to that. There's you're getting natural CDC here, and it's full of the oils, and it's free, so that's the sort of plus points. The downside is you've got to really go through the bag to find some decent feathers, especially for this fly. I'm wishing I used some of the Ultra Select stuff now, would have made my life a bit better. But what I've got in my hands here is approximately 4 or 5 plumes, and again I want them the length of the shank, which I've managed to guesstimate in my fingers there, and I'm going to dress that up and catch that on. Now before I do anything else, I'm going to just lift everything back, making sure I've still got this space here, really important. Then what I can do is just get it onto the top of the shank of the hook, come in with my snips, and I want to just at an angle remove that waste. And what that does is it allows me to step down from the CDC, and it gives me a nice smooth transition from where I've tied in the CDC to the body. Again, all the way back, and because you're using the nano silk, you've got lots of room for error with your thread turns. You don't need to be worrying so much about that. Okay, the body. I'm using some Troutlines. This is pure Squirrel dubbing, and the reason I'm using this is that it's really compacts down and gives me a nice thin body, which is what I want for that. Before I put the dubbing on though, I'm just going to add a little bit of wax, dubbing wax to my thread. This just helps keep it all nice and tight in. You know, sometimes I want a spiky body, and other times I just want a very thin, slim body. And this is one of these occasions. I'll just dress that up, and then all I'm doing is feeding. I've got the pinch of dubbing in my left hand and my thumb and forefinger, and I'm feeding it to my rotating fingers on my right hand. So, and that's looking pretty good. And that's staying nice and tight, which is what I was after. Then I'm going to just shorten up my thread because you get better control, and start to work all the way up the body. And that's worked out nearly perfect. So what I've left is I can still see my thread base just at the base of the CDC there, and that's ideal. So I'm going to take my wire rib and I'm going to go in the opposite direction to my dubbing, bringing it towards me this time, all the way up, and then I can catch that in again with my thread. Now I was in two minds whether to show you this fly, because although it just looks like a hot mess when it's finished, it's actually quite a difficult fly to get right, especially on camera. So but I thought, what the hey, I'm sure you'll all forgive me if I make a hash of it. So again, I'm coming back to my pure pine squirrel dubbing, and I want to take the tiniest of bits, and I'm going to dub that on again, just a tiny little bit. You know, half the time you'd think, why bother, you're putting so little material on, but in this occasion less is more. I might have to pick a little bit off that at the end actually. So I'm going to get another couple of turns to cover them thread wraps. What I'm going to do now is with my fingers, I'm going to just tease back some of the CDC, couple of wraps, then again back to the CDC, and I'm teasing it back. And for those of you that know how to tie a double decker, it's a similar sort of style to that. So I'm just, each turn I'm teasing it back. Try and keep your hackle feather out the way, and then on your last turn get a couple of turns in front of all the CDC, and then remove any of your excess dubbing. You no longer need that. So surprisingly this is going okay. Right, next I'm going to take my hackle and I'm going to break the spine. Now you'll have heard me use that expression before. Don't snap it, but you just break it so that it comes at a 90-degree angle away from the hook. I'm going to pull everything back out the way, and you see that 1/8 of an inch with the tie, and it has reduced slightly, but I've still got a bit of room there, and I'm going to get a couple of thread wraps just down to hold that. Now the first turn of my hackle, make sure you've got your hackle pliers handy, but initially I'm going to use my fingers. First turn of the hackle in front of all the CDC, and then I'm going to start, as I did with the dubbing, working the hackle through the CDC fibres. And it's quite a laborious operation, this, but you get a really nice effect at the end. Well, I think it's a really nice effect. And you get a fly that will actually float like a cork. So when I get to the back and I've got all the CDC in front now, I do a couple of turns, then I'm going to come back through it again, and I'm actually not going to need my hackle pliers, which is unusual. Mostly when I've been tying these, I have used my hackle pliers. Now, make sure you've got it trapped in. With your thread before you let go, unlike I did. Pull everything back, get a few turns in front to lock that in, and then this will just pull away with a sharp pull. Okay, so that's looking okay. Next then, I'm going to come in with some UV resin onto my thread. Then grab my whip finish tool. Now there's a couple of flies that really stand out in the spring, and they would be, to my mind, the Jingler and the Grunter. I don't know what it is, but in March and early April, the trout just seem to want a big meal, and that's what I had in mind when I was tying this. It's kind of a cross between the Grunter and the Jingler, if you like. So I'll just cure that off, and then if you've got any sort of stray feathers and you're a little bit pernickety like me, you can come in with a pair of tweezers and just remove them. And that's looking pretty good. Really visible on the water, and trout will like the movement. It's often a fly that works really well when it's skated, actually. So when you start getting, you know, some drag when you're dry fly fishing, something you like to avoid, but with this fly I like to have that drag, and often fish will come and smash it then. Anyways, thanks very much for watching. I'm going to put the Grunter and the Jingler on the screen now, and I'll see you all next time.